The sea, stretching as far as the eye can see, bashed its waves against the steep cliffs of the raised northern section of the wedge-shaped island. A small cradle of civilization sat at the bottom of the wedge, the only part of the island easily accessible by sea, while the rest of the island found itself covered in a dense forest of maple trees, left untouched from lack of population and necessity. Further into the forest, a tall and dense maple tree stood erect, a well-constructed treehouse built into its frame. Wooden slats were nailed into the base of the tree, used to climb to the treehouse above, an act being carried out right now by a gargantuanly sized young man, a not quite as large burlap sack flung over his shoulder. Pulling himself up onto the deck-like platform from the ladder, the young man wiped the sweat from his blonde, shoulder-length hair, bangs parted into a widow's peak. The massive youth opened the door to the treetop house and casually walked inside, his shin-length boots creaking the time-worn wooden slats underneath him. "I'm back." Trash and broken pieces of now unrecognizable items scattered the floor. Clothes in piles, dirty dishes left sitting out, childlike drawings taped to the walls, and a wooden box used as a table with logs as stools. A single painting of two grown men, arms thrown over each other's shoulders with bright smiles, clashed with everything else in the vicinity.
"Got a nice haul today. Had a little trouble on the way back, but I handled it."
A colossal young man let the bag drop, waking the one sleeping on the floor in front of him. He was shorter and slimmer than the average person, let alone in comparison to the young man towering over him. His long black hair was spiked up, convening at the top. His bare feet slapped the floorboards as he stood up with a yawn.
What you get?"
Mason began to unload the bag onto the counter between the two.
"I got grapes, steak, 1 egg, spaghetti, candy bars, a bowl of milk, fried chicken, loose mayonnaise, a live chicken, some Wait a second."
As Mason held the live chicken in his hand, about to place it on the counter, he noticed that the counter was entirely empty.
"Where did all the food go?"
Mason's head slowly rose until he was glaring at Lyle across the counter, a stain around the young boy's mouth and cheeks like a squirrel.
"I pushed him away?"
With it squawking away, Mason slapped the lying boy across the cheek with the chicken.
"Like hell you did!"
Lyle nursed his cheek as Mason released the chicken and grabbed the empty bag, pushing it into Lyle's chest.
"Well, would you look at that? Seems it's your turn to steal the groceries."
Lyle gleefully took the bag, spinning on his heels as he headed for the door already.
"Worth it! Those groceries better make it back here in one piece, and I'm eating first!" I know.
The boy grabbed the door frame, using it to swing out the door. He continued out along the balcony, peering out into the forest below with a contemplative look on his young face. The boy slipped back through the doorway as he made his way back over to his elder brother, now cleaning up the remains.
"Hey, Mason?" What's the holdup?" "You know that place we've been planning to go to for years now?" "The unemployment office?" "Of course not! Don't you remember what Gramps said to us when we were just kids?" "Hey, don't try and change the conversation like that. Go get the damn groceries." I know, I am. I just, randomly remembered and wonder if you still did too." "Of course I do. Paradise. Place where all your dreams come true. How could I forget?"
11 years prior, a younger Lyle and Mason walked the cobbled roads of East Maple Island's port town, Lyle's stomach growling like a wild animal.
"What about Dante's spaghetti?" "No way. He only serves spaghetti. What kind of place only serves one thing? He doesn't even serve other pastas, just spaghetti." "Well, we need to find somewhere. I'm starving." "You're always starving."
The two children continued to bickeringly argue over where to eat as an old man walked past them, running his fingers along the underside of his suspenders. Mason looked up with an and snapped his fingers, declaring,
"There's still Jabroni's bar." "A bar that only sells milk? No thanks." "Seriously, what is wrong with this island?"
The two boys pouted as they walked, disappointed in their lack of shops easy enough for two children to steal from. The sound of suspenders being snapped hit the boys' ears as an old man mumbled away to himself.
That food was absolutely delicious. It was almost like paradise in my stomach."
Lyle and Mason both spun on their heels in hearing this. The word delicious, followed by a word they had never learned, was intriguing enough to follow it through.
"Paradise? What's that?"
The old man weakly turned to face them, a radiating smile across his face as he helped the curious children.
"Oh, I was just saying the food was like paradise. It's like an idiom, just like a saying."
Mason's brow furrowed as he stepped forward to ask his question, as if being called upon in a classroom.
"Paradise is an idiot? Don't be so full of yourself, Mason. He wasn't talking about you."
Lyle pats Mason on his back, mocking him cheerfully.
"He didn't say idiot, he said idiom. He was talking about the food!
No. Well, I was actually talking about the food, but that's not what...
The old man tried to intervene between the arguing kids, but it was to no avail.
That's not what he meant. He meant paradise is something stupid. Nuh-uh, it's something yummy.
The old man's smile faded with an irritated sigh as he pulled a stick of chalk out of his pocket. A long stick whacked against a chalkboard, pointing at the word paradise. Sat upon a rock with a blanket pulled over them, Lyle and Mason listened contently to the old man as they sipped away on hot cocoa.
Paradise. Noun. A place or condition that fulfills all one's desires or aspirations. Is that clear?
In one synced motion, the boys bolted to their feet as the blankets slid off them, leaving their cups of cocoa behind. They exchanged a knowing look and nodded in unison. The two boys took off down the cobbled path, their arms pumped into the bright blue sky, headed toward the horizon.
Paradise, here we come!
Lyle tore down the road at a much faster speed, while the bulkier of the two struggled to keep up.
Wait up, you damn midget! Stupid legs, why are you so slow?
Left in the dust was a kind, elderly man, unnerved at what the ripples of this interaction might cause.
Of course I would remember that. We searched the whole island, but we were never able to find it. A place where all your dreams become reality. It sounds amazing, but...
Mason slumped down as he sat upon a small wooden box used as a chair for their dining table, if one could call a large slab of wood attached to a log a dining table.
But I already told you, Lyle, I'm not leaving this island. It's our home. We've never left our whole lives. We don't know what's waiting out there. We could die.
Lyle, on the other hand, giddily hopped his way onto the table in order to stick his face as close to Mason's as he could, purposely trying to goad him.
You're just saying that because you're afraid of the sea.
Mason's fist slammed on the table as the man himself rose from it, his face beet red from a mixture of anger and embarrassment.
What? I am not. I just... Shut up, okay? We're not leaving.
With his hands clasped in prayer, Lyle sulked after Mason as he tried to walk away from the pestering younger sibling.
Oh, come on, bro. Pretty please?
I am Knight Sergei Leviathan, and I beseech thee to cometh out of thine residence and adhere to thine crimes.
Lyle's rebuttal was silenced by a booming voice, startling them both. The two brothers glanced behind them at the open door, the source of the deafening voice. A cheery smile stretching across his face, the youngest rolled up his sleeve, ready for business.
I'll go load the cannon. Whoa. Can we just try and end this peacefully for once in our lives? You know what happened last time we tried to use the cannon.
Before he enacted on his rashness, Mason grabbed his shoulder, causing the young boy to pout as he sulked away.
Fine. We never get to use the cannon anymore.
Mason made his way out of the treehouse's door, shielding his eyes from the bright sunlight. Stood at the foot of the treehouse were two men dressed in a militaristic uniform. Between them, a third man stood at attention in a full set of plate armor, the word Law painted across the shoulder piece. The corners of an oddly shaped shield stuck out from behind the knight's back, with a sheathed broadsword worn on his hip, and his helmet held in the crook of his arm. His hair spiked up towards the front like some kind of faux hawk, but with the sides still grown out into sharp sideburns. A dark beard tapered off at the chin, almost as if his hair formed the shape of a star.
I canst even trow that I was besought to arrest a man residing within a tree. I never durst to witness this filthy island once more.
What? I can't understand a word you're saying.
Surely thou dost not durst to jest with I, a man amidst the law with the rank of a knight no less.
Still quite confused, Mason leaned over the railing as he attempted to shout over the man's booming voice.
Speak normal. What do you want?
No matter.
The armor on his body clanked as the burly knight turned his attention towards his subordinates beside him, barking orders to them with great gusto in his voice.
Stephen, Staniel, seek thine wrist restraints from thine mounts of which we came.
Knight Leviathan's lackeys sulked off back into the thick woods, mumbling as they did.
My name's Stan. Staniel's not even a real name.
Scratching his head in confusion, Mason still could not make heads or tails of the conversation unfolding.
Thou must only tarry for a moment longer, for whence mine proby seek thine way back amidst us, thou art royally fucked. Okay, I understood that last part. Wait, what? To assault an earl with such fulsome disregard is truly an act of one with nary a trow. I pray.
The smell of burning gunpowder wafted through the air as a thunderous boom echoed across the whole forest. With no time to react, a cannonball shot through the air with violent speed, crashing straight into the face of Knight Sergei Leviathan. The force of the cannonball was enough to pull the knight's body with it as it soared further back, snapping a tree in half as the cannonball and his head smashed through it.
Oh yeah, that's why we don't use the cannon.
Mason slowly turned his head in shock to see his younger brother with his head stuck out the window next to him, the still smoking cannon beneath them.
Dude, I'm pretty sure you just killed him. Oh, come on, you say that like this is the first time that's happened.
That other time was an accident. How was I supposed to know he was allergic to steel?
You stabbed him.
Yeah, with a steel sword.
Below the bickering duo, Leviathan's subordinates emerged from the tree line carrying 2 pairs of handcuffs.
Why'd he even tell us to leave them there in the first place?
The 2 soldiers first laid eyes upon their superior, motionless on the forest floor. Their eyes then moved up to the tree split in twain, up to the smoking cannon, and finally landed on the 2 brothers arguing out of ear's reach. The 2 brothers turned to face them simultaneously, just noticing their presence. Without either party exchanging words, the 2 petrified soldiers slowly backed up further into the thick brush until they disappeared, never breaking eye contact like they were staring down a wild animal.
Well, we're screwed.
What? Why? We can deal with a few soldiers. Not like they've caused us much of a problem before.
No, that's not what I meant. Look at the symbol on that dead guy's armor.
What do you mean?
Doing his usual thing, Lyle grabbed the window's frame as he swung his whole body out of the window and grabbed a hold of the balcony railing next to him. The young boy pulled himself up, sitting upon the railing as he pointed to the dead knight's back.
You don't remember? It's the same one Al warned us about all those years ago! The one with the big old S and the sideways crown thingy! The one he said we should never mess with no matter what! The one he said we can't let see us no matter what! You don't remember that symbol?
By the end of Lyle's rant, he jumped off the railing and slowly walked closer and closer toward Mason, forcing Mason's back against the other side of the balcony.
Uh-oh.
Lyle backed off, still fuming, but allowed Mason a little room to breathe again.
Yeah, uh-oh. I can't believe you didn't remember what it looked like. Aren't you the older brother here?
No, double uh-oh.
Lyle ceased his shaming as he focused on what Mason was saying. With each sentence, his eyes grew wider, his pupils smaller. His jaw lowered and lowered, and his sweat increased and increased.
I kinda stole some of those groceries from a guy with that symbol on his clothes. And he also kinda saw me. So I kinda punched him in the face.
Lyle fell backward, landing on his butt as he caught himself with his hands. Mason covered his face with his hands, not feeling regret for his actions till just then.
Yep, we're double, triple, the word that means 4 times screwed.
Mason slowly slid his hands down and off his face, a look of remorse no longer shown.
Wait a second. It's awfully convenient that all this happened right after you brought up Paradise.
Lyle snapped out of his distress like a switch was flipped, giggling as he awkwardly rubbed the back of his head.
Okay, I might have seen that walking tin can and his buddies when I was leaving to go get groceries. I didn't know he was one of the people Al warned us about, though. I just thought I could trick you into finally leaving.
Well, I guess it can't be helped now. Let's pack up and get out of here before the reinforcements arrive.
Behind the treehouse, much further into the dense forest, Mason walked along an almost unnoticeable footpath. He stopped at a small wooden cross, staked into the ground in front of a large, nondescript maple tree. A slightly off-white cloth was wrapped around the cross, tattered and stained from heavy use. Its width and texture were comparable to that of cotton-based boxing tape, but its length had become only maybe double that of a scarf. Mason silently stared at the cross, more than a decade's worth of memories playing back in his mind, before he reached forward and removed the cloth. He stuffed the worn fabric into one of the deep pockets of his bell-bottom pants and walked back down the path he came. After a few moments had passed, he came jogging back up to the old familiar treehouse he had spent a good portion of his youth living in. He could see Lyle waiting impatiently with a packed bag slung over his back, a much larger bag filled to the very brim beside him, dwarfing him in size.
Sorry, had to take a leak before we left. You got everything packed?
Yep, we're all set.
Mason picked up the backpack nearly the size of himself, unbelievable as that is, and stuck both arms through the straps, trying not to fall backwards with it on.
Then I guess we're off. Let's go.
Mason and Lyle trudged their way through the dense foliage, eventually making their way to the dirt road up ahead. As a bush was pulled aside, Mason and Lyle spotted the 2 soldiers from earlier, crouched and hiding. Not noticing the brothers, the two soldiers continued to quarrel with each other in hushed voices.
So you expect me to say, "Hey, Sheriff, we tracked down and found the two criminals who've been robbing the town dry for years and punched an Earl in the face this morning, but they killed a knight with a fucking cannon, so he ran away and hid in the bushes. Send backup."
Yes.
Mason let go of the bush, which allowed the noise of it swishing back into place to alert the two soldiers of their presence. They both spun around and nearly wet their pants at the sight of the two casual murderers mere feet away from them. The brothers both glanced at each other out of the corners of their eyes and nodded in silent agreement. They simultaneously slid the straps of their bags off their shoulders, letting them fall to the ground at their feet. Mason, getting the blood flowing, puffed out his chest and clenched his fists. Lyle, positioning his body for a sprint and leap, raised a leg and slammed it back down. The two ran at the frightened soldiers with full force. Mason pulled back his arm before sending it forward again, punching one of the soldiers as he ran past. Lyle leaped into the air with a flip and came down with a flying kick to the other soldier's chest. The two soldiers tumbled across the grassy floor, one unconscious while the other was left gasping for air. The two brothers exchanged a high five and proceeded to pick up their bags, hoisting them over their shoulders. They headed off down the dirt road, their arms pumped into the bright blue sky, heading toward the horizon.